Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. It's Friday. If you're watching live, if you're watching in the future, it's possibly not Friday, although it's a 1 in 7 chance that it might be. So if you are, happy Friday. Welcome to another in our series of Changemaker interviews. These are sessions when I chat with people who are making a difference, making waves, doing exciting things in the fields of SEND, mental health, advocacy, neurodivergence, and I've been kind of platforming different businesses at different times. This morning I'm joined with the magnificent Alice from sendadvocacy.com, and we're going to have a chat about Alice's work. I'm excited about this because Alice is definitely someone who you need in your life, and when you hear about what she does, you will know why. So good morning, Alice.
Oh, good morning, Heidi. What a welcome.
No pressure.
No pressure at all. It's fine. It's all good.
So whilst you're telling me a little bit about yourself, I'm going to share this. So if I look distracted, that's why. Tell us a little bit about you, your background, where you come from, as in your career.
Oh, right. Okay.
And
you can find out that too.
Yeah, and what you do. That would be amazing if you could start with that. That'd be awesome.
Okay. So what I do is I am a SEND advocate. And my background is actually that I am a lawyer. So I studied law and then I trained as a barrister and then I practiced as a barrister for a number of years before I had kids. My eldest son is autistic and ADHD, and it was through advocating for him and his needs that I realised quite what a complex and challenging world special educational needs law was, and how really difficult it was for many parents and carers to effectively get the support that their children needed. And so I set up a company to provide sort of a in-between space between solicitors and charities to provide support to parents and carers to go through that service. And that's what I've been doing for the last 4 years, although I've been working in SEND for a lot longer because my son is now nearly 14. And this journey sort of began for us as a family when he was about 5, I would say.
So you've been through that whole process yourself as a parent of advocating, getting an EHCP, understanding the whole tribunal, and then you've got that extra layer of actually knows and understands the law, which I think is just gorgeous. We need more of you. We need to clone you.
Oh, no, well, yeah. Maybe not. Yeah, so my son was originally refused a needs assessment by the local authority. He's now at a specialist independent school and has been for several years. So I know firsthand as a parent what it's like to go through the process. And obviously I did it as a lawyer. So I found it quite frustrating and challenging at times, and I had met a lot of people through the SEND space, and they also found it really difficult, but I helped them. So I did a lot of peer-to-peer work before I set up the company. I volunteered for IPSI, which I imagine that many people watching this will be familiar with, and they're brilliant. I can't speak highly enough about them, but they are so limited in what they can offer. And at the other end of the scale, I had friends who spent literally tens of thousands of pounds on legal advice from solicitors. Sometimes they didn't even end up with what they wanted. And the solicitors, they had a different way of doing things. I think what I would say is that the way I approach it is I've walked that walk. I talk the talk, but I've also walked the walk. I know what it's like, not exactly because every story is different, but I understand what it's like to be a parent in a meeting and there are 6 professionals across the table and you. I understand that power dynamic, but also I understand the tribunal system. I understand how to find the law, how to apply the law, what is being said with different words, how to read between the lines, I guess. And I know how to navigate that aspect because it's a world that I'm familiar with.
Yeah,
I know that's not true for many parents, and frankly, it shouldn't have to be, right? Your job
it's
as a
kind
parent,
of that challenge, isn't it, with tribunal, where it is a legal process, and often as a parent or a carer, you'll find yourself in a tribunal hearing, and perhaps the LA have sent a barrister, and it's quite overwhelming and quite intimidating. And although I think tribunal do work quite hard to make it parent carer friendly, there's that weird thing where, like you, I know lots of people who've spent tens of thousands of pounds on solicitors, not necessarily SEND solicitors either. And like that can be a challenge as well, right? It's quite an unusual process, even for people who have got a law background, as I understand it.
Yeah, it is. And obviously, well, I say obviously, but it's not obvious unless you're a lawyer. There are lots of different types of law, and many people who are lawyers have never set foot in a court or tribunal because that's not what they do. As a barrister, that is what I did. So I did litigating day in, day out before judges. But for many people, even if they have a background in law, it will be unfamiliar. And you're right, the Sen Tribunal try really hard to make it as accessible as they can. But ultimately, they're applying the law and they will be making legal decisions based on statutes, which are acts of parliament that the government have made into law, based on other case decisions made by other lawyers, judges. And if you're a parent and you're facing a local authority who do this day in, day out, and or a barrister who's legally trained and qualified and does it day in, day out, it can be really intimidating. Yeah.
And emotional and just tricky.
Very
And
emotional.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the kind of work that you do currently, we're going to talk about what you've got coming up, because I know that's a super exciting thing that I can't wait to send people to. But the kind of work you do generally at the moment, what kind of stuff do you do? Like, if a family came to you, what kind of families are you working with, and what are you giving them currently?
So I work with families all across England. The law is slightly different in Wales and Scotland, so I only cover England. And I do pretty much anything that you would go to a solicitor for that can be resolved by the Sen Tribunal. So if a local authority has refused to conduct a needs assessment, I can help you challenge that refusal. If you've got a plan, I can help you challenge the content of that plan, and particularly around placement. I do a lot of placement appeals. Also refusal to issue. I used to be suspicious of mediation, but I've actually had quite a lot of success recently overturning decisions not to issue at the mediation stage, which can save an awful lot of time and money for parents. So I would say that it's something to think about, certainly. I write appeals, and I provide general advice to people even before they've submitted a request, and I can help them look at a request they might want to submit or write one for them. So it's the whole gamut, really, from people who need support and they're not quite sure where they are in the process, or they're just starting, all the way through. I've worked with families on, unfortunately, multiple appeals sometimes, and I go sometimes to annual reviews with them if they're held online. I mostly work remotely and review drafts. Yeah, but I would say the main focus of what I do is around the EHC plan process and around the tribunal process. And although I don't go to final hearings that often, that's usually because I'm able to settle them before they get to the final hearing stage. But if that's something a family needs and I've been working with them for a while, then I will be available to do the final hearing. Yeah.
I love that. And I think one of the things that I really like about the work that you do, we won't talk too much about money because it's ugly. No, it's not. But I know that you do work out much more affordable than some legal services. And I feel like that's a real gap in the market at the moment. We've got kind of like, law firms that are charging a heck of a lot of money. And I'm not saying that that's not worth it, because it takes you years to train as a lawyer, right?
Yeah.
But then we've also got advocates who maybe don't have the level of experience and expertise that someone who's trained in law would have. And you kind of sit between those two. And I really love that. So I'm really grateful to you for doing that work, because I think it's very much needed. So you have a Facebook group, and I'm going to point people at it because I'm going to make sure that people know where you're at. And then we're going to talk about what you've got coming later in the year, because I'm super excited about this. So what happens in your Facebook group? Can you talk to us a little bit about what goes on there?
It's a Facebook group that I'm very heavily involved in. So I'm in there almost every day, answering people's queries, sharing news and information, not just about the EHCP process, but about SEN generally. I do have some Facebook Lives. I think that in the new rules, they sort of disappeared, and I'm going to do another one soon. So if people have a particular area of SEND law or policy that they'd like to know more about, then I'm always happy to talk about that. I share information about what's going on in the SEND world. So we obviously all know about the rumoured plans of changes to EHCP process that the government's thinking about. And I point people in the direction of sources of support that they may not be aware of. So not just the charities and organisations that are always in the headlines, but other smaller ones. And also information around aspects of SEND that are often quite confusing for parents, like social care, which is something I spoke about quite recently as well. It's a lovely group. I'd love for people to come and check us out.
And it's not a desperately overwhelming group. You've got like about 500 families in there, haven't you?
Yeah,
So
I do at
and
the
it's
moment.
fairly
Yeah.
active. So people know that they're going to kind of get their questions answered. I hate it when you're in a big group and it's kind of like crickets, and then like someone posts something and no one responds. But I get the feeling that in your group it's quite responsive. There's quite a lot of
Oh yeah,
conversation
I do. I
happening.
respond to every post that someone puts up. Yeah, because I don't want anyone to ever feel that they've asked a question. They've come somewhere looking for a community, and I want to make sure that they feel that people are interested and people do care. And then there were people in there who, even if they aren't able to give someone the answer that they're looking for, will respond just to let them know that they're not alone. Because I think it can be really isolating going through this process.
Yeah, it absolutely
Yeah.
can. It can. So let's talk about. I know you've got a freebie available at the moment, and we're all about transparency here. People will see that I put freebies out all the time. When you ask a professional in the Send space for a freebie, usually that means you give them your email address. So not only do you get Alice's 10 Send myths, but you'll get onto her email list, and you want to be on her email list because later in the year she's got something coming. And when she told me about it, I was like goosebumps. I was like, oh my God, we need that. So can we talk a little bit about what you've got coming and why that's happening and what you hope to do with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, I do a lot of tribunal work. But there is only one of me at the moment. So until they have cloned me, that situation isn't going to change. But what I thought was missing, particularly from available resources, was someone, a way of teaching parents how to advocate for themselves so that they felt confident enough to do the tribunal service system without an advocate, because not everybody can afford it. I am a lot more affordable than many other advocates and solicitors, but it is still out of reach for lots of families. And I wanted to create something that more people could access. So I'm in the process of putting together the final touches for a course on how to navigate an appeal, how to bring an appeal from start to finish before the Send tribunal. I've got a new freebie actually, which is going to be all about that. Should be good to go within the next week or so. So if people have already got the Send Myths freebie or are thinking about signing up, if you do, then you'll be the first to find out about the new freebie, which will be on the website. I have a website as well.
So if people go to your website and they click on the Academy button, whatever is the current freebie that you have available and whatever you've got, that will link through from there, and they can get access to your mailing list, and then you'll make sure that people get that information. And
yeah, absolutely.
I guess one of the questions I've got for you, and I hope this isn't a really personal question, but I kind of feel like you're such a gift to our community. And also I think surely it would be much more simple just to do regular law, Alice. Like this feels like a real, like it's very much needed, but also it's a particularly tricky area, like because of your client base, right? You're dealing with parents and carers who are often overwhelmed, on their knees, misunderstood, maybe experiencing parent blame, perhaps they're burnt out, then maybe neurodivergent themselves. So why do you do this work?
I guess I felt really passionate about it. I do feel really passionate about it and really drawn to it. And I suppose that part of what you've just spoken about is why I do it, because there is a whole really quite large cohort of people really struggling, not generally seen, although that is changing at the moment, trying to navigate a system which was not designed to do what it's having to do at the moment. So I think we can all safely say that the system is in crisis. But I do enjoy the work in as much as I know I make a difference. And I've done other areas of law. Sometimes they were sort of social justice areas of law, but not always. But in the work that I do now, I know, because I know from my own experience and from my friends, just how life-changing it is to get the right support. So when my son was in crisis and out of school, so he was out of school for about 18 months. Some of it was over COVID, but most of it wasn't. I couldn't work. Our whole family was essentially in limbo until we have managed to get him out of crisis and into an appropriate setting to meet his needs. But I know families that have been struggling for years in that crisis situation, and you're not living, you're just surviving, and It's so I've seen with my own eyes exactly how amazing the right support is. Everyone should be able to access it, in my view, and at the moment they can't. So it isn't always easy, and you're right. I have a lot of diagnosed and undiagnosed neurodivergent parents that I support, and they also have found it really hard to navigate the system because their own neurodivergence can often create barriers that professionals that they work with don't understand and react negatively to. I've seen that as well.
Yeah.
And I feel that I provide both the law but also the empathy. I think when people work with me, and it is very much working with me because you know your child best, and I am working for you, but not sort of, I don't do things it's a for you service at the moment, but it's a partnership. I collaborate with families in order to get the best results. And from having spoken to families who've also worked with solicitors, they say that that is often something that is missing, that they felt like the solicitor came in, they took over and they did it to them almost. They weren't involved actively. They didn't feel that they were an equal partner. But I very much involve families because I have been that family. Yeah.
I think that's key as well. Like in my advocacy work, I feel like the most important thing, as you said, is for people to feel that they're supported. The biggest challenge in the system is not actually understanding the system. It's managing yourself, being able to regulate, being able to stay out of overwhelm and being able to stay focused and to understand what's important during the process, because it's a huge emotional strain. But I think one of the things that I'm really keen on, I think that you're probably in the same school of thought, is that if we can educate parents and carers during the process, then they are better equipped going forward. And I have seen on occasion where people have engaged solicitors, and like you say, the solicitor has, done what they are generally doing in these situations, which is kind of take over and have the conversation and do the litigation and deal with the conversations. But then you've got parents in the middle who are like, I don't really know what's happening. I don't really know what's going on. And they're then not upskilled for next time this happens. And I feel like that's really important. And there are, we've mentioned there are some great services, IPSI, SOSEN, the local SENDIAS service also offer incredible support. And we know that there are some families who need that extra layer, who need a bit more of that specialist legal advice that perhaps you don't get from some of those services. And those services are all incredibly overstretched, right? So
they are, yeah, absolutely. And also just having it, I mean, I think there's a lot of information out there, so much so that in and of itself can be really overwhelming for many families. They don't know where to look, or if they do know where to look, they find it hard to take it and apply it to their own situation. So that's something that I can do to help them see the wood for the trees, as it were. But I agree. When you are a SEND family, it's never a case of having one thing done and then never having to think about it again. So it is really important that parents develop the skills to do this on their own, I think, because they will be in the system for a long time and they need to have the confidence to know that they will be able to continue to advocate effectively, because almost nobody has enough money to employ solicitors every year. And some parents find themselves going to multiple tribunals. I mean, they really shouldn't have to, but I have seen that.
Especially parents who have children, maybe who, I see it a lot in the field where we've got kids who have barriers to attendance. Absolutely. And every year at annual review you're fighting to maintain whatever arrangement that you've got, and there's probably quite a lot of information coming through from various professionals, and then your EHCP isn't properly updated, and then you've got to go to tribunal on the content again to get that reflected in the changing needs and the changing provision for your child or young person. And all the while, in the middle of it, you're trying to facilitate your young person or your child accessing provision. So there's a lot. And I think anything we can do to upskill parents is really, really important. And that's why I love that you're doing this tribunal work, because I know for me, like, that before I went to tribunal for myself, and then I went on and supported other families, I had no idea. And the word tribunal scared the hell out of me. And, I needed someone, which I know is something that you do, to say, this is what to expect. This is what will happen. These are the kind of things that judges might ask or might say or might want to make sure that you understand, because I think parents, a lot of the time, if they don't have that support, they can find themselves turning up at tribunal, and then the first thing the judge says is, so, can someone summarize what's going on? And then because a parent hasn't had it properly explained to them, the process, it can become a bit of a monologue about all the failings of the local authority. And whilst that is valid, that is not the place to be doing that. So it's kind of helping parents to know how to get the best out of the system and to use the time that they've got in front of a judge in the most effective way to get what they want for their child or young person.
That is absolutely the case. I completely agree, because I think something that mainly parents might not be aware of is that the judges in SEND tribunals, they're not SEND specialists. They're lawyers, but they don't know everything. And so they rely to some extent on the people before them that come to the tribunal to have an understanding. In order for them to be able to do their job. And you're absolutely right. It can be really overwhelming to be in that environment and to be expected to know things that you don't know. And that's really hard. And I don't want parents to feel that, because then even if you go to a tribunal and you don't get everything you want, I think it's really important that parents feel that they have been listened to, because often it is the first time that they've been in front of a professional with the power to make decisions about their child's life that they feel has really listened to them. But in order for a judge to hear what you have to say, there is a way that you need to present it to them. And that's what I want to be able to teach parents to do, not to fear the tribunal process, and to be able to use it in a way that will help them advocate most effectively for their family.
I'm so, 100%. Like chef's kiss. Right. So you will hear a lot from Alice in the coming weeks and months, because I am really keen for people to see the work that you're doing. I think it's so vital, and I think it is going to make a real difference to people. So I'm so grateful to you for doing that. Just a reminder for folks, come and find Alice's Facebook group. It's a free advocacy Facebook group. It's called SEND Advocacy Academy. I need to put my teeth in on Facebook. And or get over to Alice's website, sendadvocacy.com/academy. Download her free 10 SEND myths busting things you need to know, and keep an eye out, because I know that I know you're already helping families, but I know you're going to really help families with the tribunal course that you've got coming. And I believe that if people need help between now and when your tribunal course comes out, you do have some capacity. You do offer consultant call, like advice calls, so that people can reach out to you if they need something kind of, and they're like, this is my kind of gal, I need to chat to her. Please find your way to Alice. So thanks everyone for joining us live. Thank you for those watching on replay. Hello from the past, hello to the future, and enjoy the rest of your whatever day of the week you're on. We'll see you all later. Take care, everyone.